So you might have heard, Netflix just announced a new Narnia movie. And wow, the internet is absolutely on fire about it. But this isn't your typical fan debate over casting. Nope, this one cuts right to the heart of a huge question. Does Hollywood even respect the stories we all grew up loving? Let's get into it.
All right, here's our game plan. First up, we're going to talk about the Narnia announcement that kicked this whole thing off. Then we'll really unpack this word that keeps getting thrown around, subversion. After that, we'll zoom out and look at the bigger picture. You know, this so-called Hollywood adaptation problem. We'll even look at a counterexample, an adaptation that fans are actually loving, and then we'll tie it all together with the big question at the heart of this entire debate.
Okay, so it all started with one single announcement from Netflix. They're making a new Narnia movie, and the director they chose to helm it is, well, let's just say it's a choice that has sent some serious shockwaves through the fan community.
So what's all the fuss about, really? Well, it boils down to this pretty wild clash of creative worlds, a collision of two very, very different sensibilities. Let's take a closer look at who we're talking about here.
So, in one corner, you've got Greta Gerwig. You know her? She's fresh off directing Barbie, which was this massive cultural phenomenon, a huge statement on modern feminism. And in the other corner, you have the Chronicles of Narnia, a beloved classic book series that, at its very core, is a Christian allegory. I mean, the lion Aslan is widely seen as a Christ figure. So yeah, you can start to see why putting these two together is making some people a little nervous.
And for a lot of fans, this isn't just about, oh, that's an interesting creative choice. No, they see it as a sign of something much deeper, something they're genuinely worried about. And that one word that keeps coming up over and over is subversion.
And then, almost as if on cue, a quote came out from a film editor working on the project, and it just poured gasoline on the fire. They said they weren't really referring back to the source material because they were doing their own take. Now, for fans who love the original story, that was a massive, massive red flag. It sounds like they're just tossing the source material out the window.
And this is where the source we're analyzing really draws its line in the sand. To them, this isn't just artistic license or creative freedom. No, they're calling it what they see it as, willful subversion.
So, let's be really clear about what willful subversion means in this particular context. We're not just talking about changing a few plot points or combining some characters. The accusation here is that Hollywood is deliberately taking Narnia, a story built on Christian themes, and flipping it completely on its head to push a totally different ideology.
But here's the thing. The argument being made is that this isn't just about Narnia. Not at all. It's supposedly a symptom of a much, much bigger problem with how Hollywood handles these kinds of adaptations in general.
According to the source, we see this pattern play out over and over again, right? A studio buys the rights to a beloved franchise with a huge built-in audience, and then they proceed to make changes that alienate the very people who are most excited about it. It kind of makes you scratch your head, doesn't it?
And the source we're looking at really doesn't pull any punches. They claim that when studios do this, the message they're sending to the original fans is, well, it's pretty harsh. You can see it right there on the screen.
So why does this keep happening? Well, the argument is that Hollywood is basically living in a bubble, an echo chamber, where they're completely out of touch with what audiences and diehard fans actually want to see. And that, according to the source, is why we keep getting these decisions that seem totally baffling to everybody on the outside.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. To make their point, the source also points to a recent show as an example of an adaptation that is absolutely nailing it. So let's take a look at what respect for the source material can look like when it's done right.
And that shining example is HBO's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the new Game of Thrones prequel. This show is being held up as the gold standard, the model for how to do an adaptation properly. So what's its secret? According to the source, it's actually pretty straightforward. They respect the material. They use dialogue pulled straight from the book. Yeah, they make some smart structural changes to make it work for TV, but they don't lose the core of the story. And the most important part? The fans are on board. The hype is real, and it's building every single week.
And get this, the source estimates that a whopping 98% of the dialogue in the show comes directly from the book. I mean, that is an incredible level of faithfulness to the original story. So this slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's the two opposing philosophies right there, side by side. On the one hand, you have the approach fans fear for Narnia, doing our own take, potentially subverting the core themes and pushing the original fans away. And on the other side, you have the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms approach, respecting the material, using original dialogue, and building hype and trust with your audience. It's a really stark contrast.
So after all of that, where do we land? What is the big takeaway from this whole firestorm? Well, it really all boils down to a fundamental tension, a tug-of-war between two very different ideas about what an adaptation is even supposed to be.
At the end of the day, when you strip it all away, you're left with two competing approaches. On one side, you have faithful adaptation, where the goal is to bring the book to the screen as accurately and authentically as possible. And on the other, you have artistic reinterpretation, where the book is really just a starting point for something new. And that's exactly where the conflict is.
And that leaves us with the million-dollar question, the one that sits at the heart of so many of these fan debates. Where exactly is the line between a creative adaptation and a willful subversion? It's a question that fans and creators are probably going to be wrestling with for a long, long time. So what do you think? Is it more important to stay true to the original, or should a classic be reinvented for a new generation? There really is no easy answer, is there?